back, everyone, to the second episode of Cardinals Uncovered, and I'm your host, Andrew Nordmeier. Today on the show, we'll take a look at the free agency moves on the offensive side of the ball that Arizona made so far since free agency opened a few weeks back. We'll also talk about mock drafts and primarily what Arizona will be doing with its fourth overall pick in the draft that happens later this month. Seemingly everyone has an opinion on this, and the mock trade machine might explode with all the mock offers in the air. But first, we'll start today with the news about Terry McDonough that came out earlier this week. It was reported on Monday that an NFL arbitrator ordered the Arizona Cardinals to pay $3 million to the former team executive for false and defamatory statements made about him in the media. All right, so this was quite an interesting case that went on here, and this is according to ESPN.com's Tisha Thompson, that in a 62-page decision dated March 29th, Jeffrey Mishkin, the arbitrator appointed by league commissioner Roger Goodell, determined the Cardinals and their owner, Michael Bidwill, defamed McDonough with malice in a multi-page statement to media organizations that accused McDonough of spousal abuse and neglect of his disabled adult daughter, allegations that McDonough denied. McDonough's attorney, Mike Caspino, filed a decision in U.S. District Court in Arizona on Monday as part of the request to confirm the award. And as a quote here, despite what we consider to be a fundamentally unfair arbitration process, Terry McDonough is the first person to ever win against an NFL owner, Caspino, the attorney, said in a statement about Monday's filing. Why the NFL has not held Michael Bidwill accountable remains a mystery. End quote. That's a really good question. As you see on the image that we've got up here alongside me, you've got Bidwill in the bottom left, Steve Keim the top left, and Steve Wilkes, who was the then head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, lasted one season there on the right. So for those of you who don't know, what happened here was that that Steve Keim wound up getting in trouble with the law with an extreme DUI. And what wound up happening after that point, let's just go through and say what it was. Okay, so Michigan dismissed McDonough's other claims of unlawful retaliation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, invasion of privacy. McDonough brought the arbitration against the team last April, alleging Bidwill and the team retaliated against him after he told Bidwill he was uncomfortable with the team's use of burner phones used to communicate with then general manager Steve Keim, whom Bidwill had suspended for extreme DUI. And McDonough started working for the Cardinals in 2013. He was the vice president of player personnel, signed a 2-year contract extension in May of 2022, but was relieved of his duties in January 2023, 3 months before he filed the complaints. Now, according to the arbitration ruling, McDonough saw $15 million in lost future earnings, $10 million for emotional distress, $10 million for reputational harm, and between $60 and $90 million in punitive damages. So that is an awful lot of money that was sought in an arbitration ruling. What it wound up actually being awarded was $150,000 in general damages for harm to his reputation caused by the defamatory statements, $600,000 in damages for emotional distress caused by the statements, and $2.25 million in punitive damages. Michigan found out the team used burner phones but did not find in favor of the allegation that McDonough made that the Cardinals' actions prevented him from being hired as a general manager in the league. McDonough was a finalist for the San Francisco 49ers GM job in 2017, but had no interviews for any GM positions after that. So that is why he was in that position. And the Cardinals put out a team statement, and I'll show it here real quick. And it basically says that, as quote, "We are pleased with the arbitrator's decision, dismissing all of Terry McDonough's employment claims and finding there was nothing improper about his dismissal from the team. As for Mr. McDonough's other claim, we respect the arbitrator's determination that our initial statement went too far. We accept responsibility for that statement and are grateful this arbitration is now resolved." End quote. So it seemed like the arbitration element on this had ended and that we were going to, have this potentially, wrapped up and put away here. Now, the whole thing about the DUI was that when Steve Keim was the general manager of the Cardinals. He was serving a 5-week suspension after pleading guilty to extreme DUI in Arizona, which is having a blood alcohol content between 0.15 and 0.2%. Anything over 0.20 is a super extreme DUI, which does not sound all that fun. And remember that 0.08 is the legal limit here. So Keim was approximately double the legal limit when he was arrested for the DUI. In the filing, McDonough said that he and Wilkes objected to and sought to avoid participation in the scheme hatched by Bidwill to avoid using the burner phones. And with good reason there, because you certainly do not want to be caught going around the rules of the National Football League, ever. And what happened is that because of the time that Keim was suspended, this was during training camp in the summer of 2018. As a general manager, not being able to reach out to your coaches or your owner or anybody like that to try and help with making those moves about the team, it becomes very, very difficult to do your job as a general manager. Not just statement of fact. You just can't do it if you can't talk to anybody. So that's what led to it. That's when it happened. And then another quote on this here was that in response to McDonough's objection to the illicit burner phone scheme, Bidwill cursed at, berated, and formally reprimanded McDonough and ultimately demoted him irrevocably. That's a tough word, damaging the trajectory of his 34-year career in the NFL. And Bidwill also subjected McDonough to bullying, mocking, harassing, and abusive behavior. Wow. Now, the real question here is, will there be penalties of some nature against Bidwill? According to Mike Florio of NBC Sports, the league's personal conduct policy leads one to think there will be punishment, but how much? Well, let's take a look at that policy. So the personal conduct policy is applicable to non-players, includes a list of prohibited actions. Two of them potentially apply here. First, the policy targets stalking, harassment, or similar forms of intimidation. Second, the policy includes a catch-all provision regarding conduct that undermines or puts at risk the integrity of or public confidence in the NFL, NFL clubs, or NFL personnel. End quote. I put a little bit of emphasis on that with a bold in the italics on the back end of it, just to make that stand out a little bit more as what we're looking at here. So the big question, is what kind of penalty would Bidwill be in line for here? The league might say $3 million is enough punishment and let it go. Maybe Bidwill gets suspended by the league. There might even be some drumbeats getting louder to have him sell the team. We're going to continue to follow the story as it develops and let you know what the league decides to do. And then Thursday happened. But wait, there's more to this story. Oh, indeed, there is more, and it has happened quickly. So just when we thought the arbitration element was actually done, and it is, another angle emerged on this, or should we say another lawsuit. Per Bob McManaman of the Arizona Republic, a civil lawsuit was filed in the latter part of the week, just this past week, in Maricopa County Superior Court by McDonough's family against Bidwill himself for defamation, negligence, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. So now this is getting to be pretty serious here when we're talking about that kind of a claim, because remember, the arbitration itself was just Terry McDonough. The family was not involved in the arbitration claim. So now the family has filed a civil suit, and this can get pretty ugly pretty quickly. So there's McDonough on the left, Bidwill on the right. And so in the case itself, McDonough, his wife, and his daughter are named the plaintiffs. The daughter is important to mention here because she has special needs, and that was part of the initial complaint that led to arbitration to begin with. The initial arbitration settled earlier this week against the team also involved the false accusations of spousal abuse that McDonough allegedly committed against his wife. Bidwill, the Arizona Cardinals Football Club LLC, Counterpoint Strategies, and the company's executive, Jim McCarthy, are among those named as defendants. The law firm of Gallagher and Kennedy, including lawyer Don Johnson, are also named as defendants per McManaman's report in the Arizona Republic. So the question is, what are the allegations that we've got here in this situation? Well, NBC Sports actually was able to obtain a copy of it, and let's go through some of those allegations right now. All right. So as you see here, we've got Bidwill hiring a public relations firm to dig up dirt on Terry McDonough and spread lies against about Terry and his family. Bidwill and the other defendants went after the McDonough family, spreading lies about the wife and the daughter. Bidwell admitted he acted with an intent to harm McDonough and his family. He repeatedly lied in sworn testimony during a deposition before an arbitrator duly appointed by the commissioner, and so on and so forth. You can see here, this is a pretty bulky list of allegations that Terry McDonough is bringing forth against Bidwell. And after the way the whole arbitration thing went, this could be rather damaging to Bidwell and to the franchise itself, maybe even the league, depending on how this whole thing plays out. Now, it's still early. The lawsuit was filed only a couple days ago, so we don't know how this is going to play out, but this will definitely be an interesting storyline to watch from an off-the-field perspective over the course of the season. But there is definitely going to be, at some point, a very big news story coming out of this. Now, of course, the question that you're trying to figure out here is, can this be wrapped up before training camp starts? Training camp is roughly 14 weeks away. I don't think it can get done that quickly. So keep an eye on this. Let's see what happens. And either way, it's going to be a very interesting summer and into the fall in regards to this lawsuit. So let's shift gears and let's start talking about actual stuff between the hash marks, and let's talk about those free agency moves on the offensive side of the ball. The three key free agents are running back DJ Dallas, offensive lineman Jonah Williams, and journeyman wide receiver Chris Moore. Dallas comes to Arizona from Seattle, where he was primarily a special teams player and occasional kick returner. He signed a 3-year deal with the Cardinals, which is a little puzzling because he didn't produce much on the offensive side of the ball. Last year, he had a grand total of 36 rushing yards and 26 receiving yards for the entire season, with one play over 10 yards. He won't be much of a factor on the depth chart battle behind James Conner at running back, but his appeal is in the return game, even more so in light of the new kickoff rules that will go into effect this season. Now, Dallas has recorded a return of at least 20 yards on a kickoff and a punt each of the last 2 seasons, so there's some potential there for explosive plays. He hasn't found the end zone last year and has not scored a touchdown since 2021, so I can see what he brings to the table, but the length of the deal is a little bit curious to me. 3 years, I'm not quite sold on. 1 or 2, more likely, but 3, not 100% sold there. Now, Jonah Williams, on the other hand, comes to the desert from the jungle of Cincinnati, where he played right tackle for the Bengals and was helping to protect Joe Burrow last season. Williams was drafted 11th overall in the 2019 draft, but missed his rookie season with a torn labrum. He was originally a starter at left tackle, but when the Bengals signed Orlando Brown Jr. last season, it forced Williams to the right side of the line. He should be able to compete for the starting job that's open after DJ Humphries was released last month and have a pretty good chance to win that job. Williams' durability, we see that word creeping in again like it did in our first episode, is evident as he's only missed 2 games combined in the last 3 years and started all 17 games in 2023. He's played more than 1,000 snaps in each of the last 3 seasons and was penalized a total of 16 times in 3 seasons with only 6 holding calls and 5 false starts. This signing you can really classify as solid but not sexy, and it seems to be the signature of the Monty Ossenfort era so far. Then you have Chris Moore. He had a 1-year deal and looks to be more of a depth piece and a possible camp body at this point in his career. He started in the NFL in 2016 with Baltimore, stayed there through his rookie deal, bounced around a little bit with a couple years in Houston before spending last year in Nashville with the Titans, and now out here to us in Arizona. Last year, he had 17 games, 5 starts, 22 catches, 424 yards. So 20 yards a catch is not too bad, but he did not find the end zone. So I think Moore's going to wind up competing in camp for a wide receiver 4 or 5 spot on the roster. He could possibly get a practice squad job if he doesn't make the main roster. But that's, I think, about the ceiling we're going to see on him. We'll follow more moves as they happen, but I'm thinking it's going to be relatively quiet on this front until the draft in about 15 days. And when that happens, it's just going to be crazy. So let's go ahead and move on to the mock draft part of the show. And let's be honest, there are mock drafts everywhere. Everybody and their mother's been doing mock drafts, whether it be, CBS, ESPN, NFL.com, various team sites, the Wall Street Journal, Nintendo Power, whatever it may be. The point is, everybody these days is doing a mock draft. I'm going to do one too because there have been so many different things flowing around out there. You don't know what to make of any of it. So, as it is right now, a heavy majority of the mock drafts I've seen have Marvin Harrison Jr. of Ohio State coming to the Cardinals in the fourth overall pick. It makes sense since the Cardinals really needed some help at wide receiver. I mean, if you remember last time out, that really bare cabinet graphic, it still applies. And remember, too, the free agent market that position wasn't terribly electric this year. Anyone else remember Keenan Allen went to the Bears for a day 3 pick? And just recently, Stephon Diggs got traded from Buffalo down to Houston. And it wasn't a terribly great return that the Bills got, even though they're going to be saddled with about $30 million in dead cap space as a result of that deal. The most common trade I've seen out there involves Minnesota moving up from 11 to 4 to get themselves a quarterback since Kirk Cousins bolted for Atlanta in the offseason. The deal I keep coming across is the picks of 11 and 23 and a 2025 first to have Minnesota move up to 4th overall and get a third-round pick from the Cardinals. And the Cardinals have 3 third-rounders this year, so getting rid of one of those to kind of lubricate a deal, not a bad idea. You never know. But it's like I said, it's not a bad idea. Having 3 first-round picks sounds tasty, but I would rather turn it down to have Marvin Harrison Jr. or maybe Malik Neighbors, maybe Rome Odunze, get that wide receiver one we really, really need down here. Because I think if we miss out on one of those big 3, we're going to regret it for a very long time. Of course, last year, as you guys saw, the Cardinals traded away the 3rd pick to Houston, and they got back on the clock with the 6th pick. So could this be another year where Monty Ossenfort wheels and deals like that during the draft? Absolutely. Will it happen, though? We don't know. And of course, you never know what's going to happen between the various teams as they try and move up or down the draft board. The Chargers have the 5th spot, so they could be a possible option as maybe a trade partner. If, let's say, Minnesota moved up to 4, could the Cardinals make an offer to move back up to 5? We don't know. Point is, there's a lot of variables in play here. And at this point, being more than a couple weeks out before the draft, it's smokescreen this. I don't know that. Who's doing what? We can't really predict this or even take a guess at this point. And if you thought that was a lot of possibilities at 4, wait till you see what it looks like when you get down to 27, which is the second Cardinals pick that they have in the first round, and that came through the Houston Texans. Yeah, the same Houston team that won the AFC South after Jacksonville snoozed the last month of the season, the Houston Texans that defeated Cleveland in a home playoff game, but still somehow lost on the road to Carolina last season. I don't get that either. They're also the same team that made solid moves in free agency on both sides of the ball. And again, they found a way to pry Stephon Diggs out of Buffalo. That receiving core for C.J. Stroud looks pretty scary when you've got Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Their tight end looks pretty solid, too. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. And you've got Joe Mixon in the backfield, who was, pretty solid in Cincinnati, had some really good years, had some kind of meh years, but overall, better than what they had back there with like Devin Singletary. So that's why the Cardinals' second pick is all the way down at 27, because Houston had a lot of unexpected success last year. And again, the Jags fell apart. I think at one point they were 8-3, where they were just going to cruise the AFC South and then just went down the stretch. I think they won one of their final 5 games and just completely choked that division away. There's no other way to say it. All right, so I did what everyone else has done. I did a mock draft of my own because there's so many of them out there. I use NFLMockDraftDatabase.com and allow trade offers to be sent. As you can imagine, I received several of them for each pick that came up, but eventually I took none of them. I wasn't willing to ship one of my 3rd round picks to Jacksonville for a 2nd, 4th, and 5th rounder in 2025, for example. There's no way to counteroffer. It's take it or leave it. So that's what I wound up doing here. So without any further delay, here's my mock draft. And let's take a look and see what I wound up taking. I think you guys are going to like this one a lot. All right. Let's start out here and let's take a look at the first picks that we've got here. Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. in the 4 spot. Absolutely. All day, every day. Give me that and give me 2 of them. And that's why when I got to 27, it was impossible to pass on Brian Thomas Jr. at 27. Yes, it's 2 wide receivers in the first round, but what other wide receivers do the Cardinals have on the roster right now? Greg Dortch, who signed his exclusive right free agent offer in the last couple of weeks. Michael Wilson. If you can name anybody else beyond that, you might be related to them. Because let's be honest, that's a bunch of bodies that you probably not really heard of a whole lot and could barely name them, let alone their stats to save your skin right now. But this way, if the Cardinals go this way, Kyler Murray gets 2 stud wide receivers, and the team will have them both on rookie contracts until their options come up for the 2028 season. It would be a great building block to have to go from seemingly no wide receivers to 2 really good wide receivers. Then it opens up the field for Trey McBride, the tight end, makes it easier for James Conner to run. I can see this being a lot of positives there to have the Cardinals offense, get a jump start going into 2024. Now, you move on a little bit farther down there. The next one's Chop Robinson from Penn State. He has been a very highly talked about edge rusher. And when I saw him available at 35, I'm like, I just have to have him on the team. Guy's got a nose for the ball, a nose for the quarterback, and an engine that doesn't quit. So that was a pretty easy choice for me at 35. In one of the first 3rd round picks, Chris Jenkins from the University of Michigan, defensive lineman. His dad was a 4-time Pro Bowl player on the defensive line, so this is easily in his blood. He's got the versatility to be used anywhere on the defensive line, and his size will fit in right with Bilal Powell and Justin Jones, who were signed in the early days of free agency. So I think that would be a solid fit and make that a very intimidating front for anybody to run on. And Cardinals definitely need that because they were dead last on defense last year, especially against the run, which has been a long time sore spot for this team. Now, Brooks at 71 is a little bit of an interesting prospect there. He's coming off an ACL tear last season. This will give him time to heal. You should have an easy mind about it because the Cardinals medical staff also helped Kyler Murray get through a torn ACL that he suffered late last season. Brooks had nearly 1,400 total offensive yards and 10 touchdowns in 10 games before getting injured in a win over Texas Christian University. He could be the heir apparent to the throne once James Conner potentially leaves in free agency after his contract runs out at the end of the season and he becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2025. Admittedly, the running back class of 2025 for free agents doesn't really look that great. You've got Connor, Ramondre Stevenson, Travis Etienne. Nick Chubb would be the big name, but he's coming off a knee injury of his own that happened late in training camp that cost him this entire season. So there's not a whole lot of juice in that position, unlike this year when, top prize was Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, guys like that. So definitely be interesting, but this way, if the Cardinals get a rookie in now like Brooks, let him heal up, let him learn from James Conner. When 2025 comes around, it could be a real nice boon to have that next big running back there in the backfield already. All right, so looking down at 90, we've got Kyrie Jackson. If you have a 6'4" cornerback with a 36-inch vertical and 4.5 speed 40 in the 40-yard dash, I will take that all day. He's also, when he played at Oregon, he was also known to get involved against the run, so he could contend for a starting cornerback job in camp opposite Sean Murphy-Bunting. And even though there's going to be smaller guys who are a little bit quicker, you can't coach size. So a guy like that is going to be able to get up, be disruptive, and try and take on those bigger body receivers and knock the balls away downfield towards the end zone. And I think this would actually be a really solid help for what we've got here. The rest of the draft, let me flip it on over here. Yes, Cameron Kinchen appears twice. I mean, I like him quite a bit. He comes across to me like a budget version of Budda Baker. He's got the instinct and the toughness to play up and run support, but his speed could be a little bit of a question mark, which drops him down to where he was available in my mock draft. He needs to work on pursuit angles and cutting down on mental mistakes to help elevate him to the roster. But when you have Baker and Jalen Thompson on your team already, you relish a chance to learn from the best. Bo Limmer, an interior offensive lineman, is more of a depth project to me. He played at Arkansas, obviously, fought through the war zone known as the SEC, tough level of play there. Not the fastest guy you've seen, but he's got a lot of strength. I mean, at the combine, he busted out 39 reps on that bench press at 225 pounds. So there's a lot of muscle in that guy, and you need as much as you can get on that front line these days. Maybe he winds up being a practice squad guy. He'll have a chance to compete for a backup role. Maybe he's a swing guard that could play either side of the interior line. Maybe a little bit of center if the need was there. So, a couple different things that could happen there. Linebacker Tommy Eichenberg is more of a run-oriented guy from Ohio State. You'll see him more on the field, um, more for the running downs as opposed to passing downs. He'll run hard, he'll run fast, straight, disrupt plays. He posted 120 tackles, 77 solo, a dozen for loss, and can play a solid role on special teams in the initial goings. He could pan out like New Orleans linebacker Pete Warner. Really good against the run, doesn't really do a whole lot against the pass. I think that's the projection I would go with on Eichenberg. So when you're a team that's always getting run on, especially late in games because you're down, I'm sorry, because you're down, your opponent's up and just trying to kill the clock, Eichenberg can see a lot of field time and start building up that experience with this team. Now, the last two guys here, Mason McCormick and Garrett Greenfield, go together in a couple of different ways there. You see, they both went to South Dakota State, and the Jackrabbits last year went 15-0 last season en route to their second consecutive FCS title. Overall, they won 29 straight games. They head into 2024 out there in Brookings, South Dakota. McCormick was the left guard for the team for the last 2 years. Garrett Greenfield was a starting left tackle. These two guys have literally played side by side for the last couple seasons, so it should be very easy to have them work together, communicate well, and produce a lot of positive results. Speaking of those results, they led the way for Isaiah Davis, who himself is another NFL draft prospect, and he ran for 1,578 yards last season, which led all of FCS. Their quarterback, Mark Gronowski, was one of 9 quarterbacks in FCS to throw for more than 3,000 yards, so the protection was there as well. All told, South Dakota State ran for 3,415 yards last year and 38 rushing touchdowns in 15 games, including the playoffs, and averaged more than 6 yards per carry. If I can get the left side of that line to stay together and block out in front for guys like James Conner, Emery DeMarcado, some of the other names on the roster there, this could be the beginning of a really nice setup here where they maybe learn, this season behind the starters, and then maybe in future seasons wind up getting pressed into that role and start playing, together again, just like they did at South Dakota State. I mean, if you're looking into the FCS for hidden gems, you might as well go for the best of the best. And if you still can't be sold on smaller schools that used to be Division II, remember there were 2 other NFL players who came from there. And this is a great trivia question, by the way. One of them is Dallas Goedert, the tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles. The other one is a 4-time Super Bowl champion, and that was kicker Adam Vinatieri, who did it with New England and with Indianapolis, wound up winning himself some Super Bowl rings. I think if Arizona landed a draft like this, there would be full of guys who could just jump right in and start day one, solid challenges for position battles, while still giving the team the depth they need and have a good amount of cap space too. Because remember, $15 million is going to hit the cap positively with the DJ Humphries designation of release on June 1st. So there's the mock draft that I did. And like I said, looking at that overall, it looks pretty solid, to be honest with you. A lot of good positives there, a lot of great things. I think that's the kind of draft that if Arizona pulls it off, we're going to have a lot of rave reviews and be very excited going into the season. And I think that's where we need to be right now, given everything else that's going on off the field, coming off a 4-win season, build some hype, build some momentum, and let's see where this goes. All right, so next time on Cardinals Uncovered, we're going to get ready for the draft, which will be about 2 weeks from the big night in Detroit. We'll take a look back at some of the draft hits and misses, focusing from 2000 onward. Spoiler alert, there's a lot of misses in this segment. The 2014 second rounder will absolutely stun you. But for now, we didn't miss an episode tonight, and I thank you for hanging out with me on Cardinals Uncovered. Until next time, I'm Andrew Nordmeier.